I'm Clara Dawson, 33 years old, female. And if someone had told me a few years ago that my biggest heartbreak wouldn't come from losing a boyfriend or a career opportunity, but from the people I once called family, I wouldn't have believed them, because growing up, despite our losses and challenges, I held on to this naive belief that family was a bond that couldn't be broken, that siblings would always stand shoulder to shoulder when life got hard, and that loyalty meant something. But I was proven horribly wrong after my father passed away, and the true faces of my brother and sister were revealed. Faces that cared more about money and entitlement than love or sacrifice. Faces I had ignored for years while dedicating myself to keeping our family together. Let me take you back, because without the past, the betrayal won't sting the way it should. I was the middle child, sandwiched between Mark Dawson, 36 years old, male, my older brother who always carried himself with an arrogance he hadn't earned, and Lily Dawson, 28 years old, female, my younger sister who played the innocent baby of the family, but knew how to manipulate people to get out of responsibility. And when Mom died of cancer when I was just 12, life tilted on its axis. Dad threw himself into his bakery to cope with the grief, and I, at that tender age, became his shadow, standing behind the counter after school, scrubbing pans, learning how to knead dough, and serving customers while my friends were out at football games or dances. And though at first I thought it was unfair, over the years the bakery became not just a workplace, but a part of my soul, because it was where Dad and I healed together, laughed together, built something meaningful together. Meanwhile, Mark claimed he was too busy, with his business ideas that never went anywhere. He burned through money Dad gave him and constantly returned with excuses. While Lily, spoiled and shielded from responsibility, ran off to college, then graduate school, then some special program abroad, which always seemed more like an excuse to avoid hard work than actual studying. And Dad, sweet, tired Dad, enabled them both, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of love. But the truth was I was the one beside him every night closing up shop. I was the one dragging myself out of bed at dawn to start baking. I was the one carrying that weight, and though I missed out on so many normal experiences, I also earned his trust, his respect, and most of all, his love. Fast forward to last year when Dad, my rock, collapsed from a sudden heart attack, and my world crumbled. Because not only was I grieving, but I also suddenly had to keep the bakery afloat alone, deal with funeral arrangements, and stand as the emotional anchor for a family that had rarely been there for me. And when we all gathered in the lawyer's office for the will reading, I thought the hardest part of this nightmare was behind me, but I was wrong. The lawyer started with the basics. Dad's modest savings and our childhood home, divided equally among us three siblings, which I thought was fair. But then came the bombshell. The bakery, the heart of Dad's life, was to be left entirely to me, Clara Dawson. And in that moment time seemed to stop. I sat frozen in my chair as I heard the gasps around me. Then the explosion. Mark jumped up red-faced shouting, "This is ridiculous." She manipulated him. She tricked him when he was sick. And Lily chimed in with tears that looked rehearsed. "I can't believe you, Clara. You stole from us." While relatives sitting in the back muttered under their breath, and my heart dropped, because instead of recognizing years of sweat and sacrifice, my siblings instantly painted me as the villain. And it didn't stop there. Days later, Mark called demanding I hand over half the bakery if I cared about family, and when I refused, saying Dad's will was clear, he spat venom at me, saying, "You're dead to us," before slamming the phone down, and Lily followed his lead, cutting contact except for nasty messages accusing me of being greedy. And as if grief wasn't heavy enough, I suddenly found myself isolated, cast out by the very people I thought would share my pain. But things escalated further when, 3 months later, a court summons landed in my mailbox. Mark was suing me, claiming the will had been forged, dragging me into a legal nightmare that drained my savings, my energy, and my sanity. Because now every morning I woke up dreading court hearings, lawyers' bills, and the possibility of losing not just my father's bakery, but the last piece of him I had left. I can't begin to describe how brutal those months were. I would wake at dawn to open the bakery, serve customers with a forced smile, then rushed to legal meetings where Mark's lawyer painted me as some manipulative daughter who took advantage of her grieving father. And at night I collapsed into bed sobbing, feeling like I was drowning. But in the darkest of those nights, I would hear Dad's voice in my head, reminding me of the way he had placed his hand on mine a few weeks before his death, saying, "Clara, this bakery is yours. Don't let anyone take it away from you." And that memory kept me going. When the trial reached its peak, I knew I needed more than just my testimony. So I went digging through Dad's things, desperate for proof. And that's when I found it. His old leather-bound diary, pages filled with his thoughts, worries, and love for us. And in one entry, written just months before he died, were the words that changed everything. Clara gave her youth to this bakery and to me. She sacrificed her dreams to keep our family afloat, while Mark chased fantasies and Lily avoided responsibility. This bakery belongs to Clara. It is my final decision and my gift to her for all she has done. When I read those words, I broke down in tears because it was Dad speaking to me from beyond the grave, affirming that he saw me, that he valued me, that I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. And when we presented that diary in court, I'll never forget the silence that followed as the judge read those lines aloud. Every sentence dripping with truth, every word cutting through Mark's lies, and I watched my brother's smug face crumble, his lawyer scramble, Lily bury her head in her hands. And in that moment, for the first time since Dad died, I felt strength flood back into me, because Dad had left not just a will but his voice, his testimony, his validation. The judge's ruling came swiftly after. The will was valid, the bakery was legally mine, and Mark's case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning he could never bring it back. And the humiliation on my siblings' faces as they stormed out of the courtroom was a kind of justice I hadn't expected but desperately needed. Though it didn't heal the loss of family, it did heal the wound of doubt, and from that day on, I poured everything I had into the bakery, renaming it Clara's Bakery not out of ego, but as a way of honoring Dad and carving my own identity. And slowly, business grew. Customers told me stories about how Dad used to chat with them, how proud he always looked when I was behind the counter, and more than once, people said, "Your father would be so proud of you." Words that made me choke back tears but also filled me with pride, because I knew they were right. As for Mark and Lily, they've cut me off entirely, no calls, no messages, though I hear through the grapevine that Mark's latest business collapsed, and he's drowning in debt, and Lily, living abroad, is constantly begging relatives for money. And while the old me might have felt pity, the new me understands that their downfall is the natural consequence of greed, laziness, and betrayal. Because you can't build happiness on the back of lies, and you can't destroy someone who's built their life on sacrifice and truth. So yes, it hurts to know my family chose money over me. It hurts to know they'll never stand beside me at holidays again. When I lock up the bakery at night and breathe in the scent of fresh bread and sugar, I feel Dad's presence, I feel peace, and I know that though betrayal cut deep, justice prevailed, sacrifice was recognized. And in the end, I didn't just inherit a bakery. I inherited the strength to stand on my own, to thrive, and to prove that blood may betray you, but character, love, and truth will always, always win.